friends, I'm Tati. Welcome back to my channel. Today we have a very chaotic video, but that's nothing new on this channel. So today I am bringing you February, March, and April wrap-up. This is gonna be a little strange because I already filmed my February wrap-up months and months ago. So you're gonna get February wrap-up from past Tati, and you're gonna get March and April wrap-up from current Tati. So fun times all around. I'm gonna let past Tati take over and give you her February wrap-up, and then I will come back. So I read 7 books in the month of February. That is a little bit lower than what I'm usually averaging these days. Normally these months I can easily make it into the double digits, but that did not happen in February. February was an interesting month. I read 7 books and I never made it to the double digits because all of the books that I read were very long. I read 1 short story this month. Aside from that, the shortest book that I read this month was over 400 pages. Everything else was very, very long, so obviously I never made it past 7, but that's okay. I honestly don't mind. I'm never doing this again, reading so many long books in 1 month, because it has put me into the worst reading slump that you can ever imagine. I've barely picked up a book in the last 2 weeks. I've started one and it's very slow progress. I don't think March is gonna be much better than February. It's probably gonna be slow and steady wins the race. Anyway, here's what I read in February. The first 3 books that I finished were the Mistborn trilogy. I made a vlog about them. I'm gonna link it up here, but I'm gonna go through each of them right now. So, first book that I finished in February was The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, and it was so good. Oh my god. Okay, so I already knew that I was gonna read the entire series just cause, but holy shit, I was not expecting to love it so much and for it to be this good. So, coherence, what is it? I don't know her. Where to start with this? I mean, if you want all my coherent, not coherent thoughts, I would suggest to just go watch the vlog, but also that is spoilery, like it has spoilers, so if you haven't read it, don't. So I'm gonna go into less spoilers here, just if you want to know my opinions on it. So here we go. Vin is the main character. She is Mistborn. Mistborn are people that can use 14 metals, and it gives them powers. The magic system in the series is made for nerds, which I truly appreciated. I love the nerdy magic systems. Thank you, Mr. Sanderson. So the series starts Vin, who lives in Luthadale, which is the capital of the Final Empire. She is a Mistborn, and basically she falls in with this group of thieves, but also like rebels, and basically they fuck shit up. The whole general plot of the book is that they are planning to overthrow the Lord Ruler, which is their god basically, but also he rules over the entire Final Empire. This was the first adult fantasy series that I've read. I had read Warbreaker in December, which was my first adult fantasy novel ever. But this was like the first series, so I didn't quite know what to expect, because in YA and new adult fantasy series, normally the conflict is drawn out over several books, so like you don't actually get war until the very last book in the series. But I got war in this one. They actually overthrew the Lord Ruler in this one, and that's as spoilery as I'll get. And so many things happened. Stakes were met. I was very happy about it. I was shocked, but I was having a grand old time. And I kind of love this book because it balances character progression and plot progression super well. So I didn't feel that either one was lacking. And also, one thing that I really enjoyed about this book, but also the series as a whole, is that the books are pretty self-contained. So they have a narrative from beginning to end, and this isn't to say that the other books don't build on each other, but you could also read them as a standalone, and you'd pretty much get the gist of what's going on. Sure, you'd miss a little character development here and there, but you could theoretically read them by themselves and understand them pretty well, which I really like, because I like series in which each book stands on its own. Not like, for example, Mortal Instruments or The Infernal Devices, in which like a lot of it is calling back to the other series, and it's all jumbled together, and really you reach a certain point that if you haven't read the other books, you're gonna miss a lot of things. I have a feeling that once I read the entirety of the Cosmere books, I'm gonna be changing my tune, but for now it stands. I really like that each book can stand on its own, and it has a complete narrative arc from beginning to end. I don't have to wait to the next book to see how a specific plot thread that was really big in this book turns out, and I really enjoyed that. What I'm trying to say is that there were really no loose threads at the end of every book. And I think that also has to do a lot with Sanderson's writing style and the fact that he has so many books in such a big universe. You never know if the next book's gonna get written or not, so might as well just like give a satisfying conclusion. Second book that I finished in February was The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I quite enjoyed this book, but there is one thing that I didn't really love, which is what eventually ended up to me detracting a star, and it was the pacing of this book. This book was really slow. There's a lot of politics that goes on, which I enjoyed because I am a political news junkie, so I'm cool with that. It was mostly just the pace of the book. The Final Empire had a really great balancing of plot progression and character progression. The Well of Ascension misses the mark on that one. It's a lot of the time you get a lot of character growth, but the plot doesn't move. This book is a lot of people sitting in rooms talking and Vin training every once in a while. And then in the last 100 pages, all of the plot happens, which is fine. That's part of like how Sanderson writes his books in general. You get a lot happening in like the last 200 to 100 pages, and that's fine. But in the Final Empire, a lot happens throughout the book in general to move the plot forward. In this one, not so much. It's a lot of people sitting in rooms talking and just like character growth, but not a lot else. So by the time I got to like the final 100 pages, when everything was happening, I was just like, it was like whiplash, and I didn't love that. But other than that, everything about this book was really great. I continued to learn about the magic system, which I really loved. The characters continued to progress very nicely. One other thing that made me detract stars actually was Vin and Ellen's relationship. Ellen is Vin's love interest, and he plays a very important role throughout the series. And one thing that I could just not stand in this book in particular is that the miscommunication trope was employed within their relationship in this book, and I hate that. I hate the miscommunication trope. It's so stupid. It's so easily resolved, and it's just a headache to deal with. So the fact that that's how their relationship was suffering, as opposed to suffering from all the other things that were going on around them at the time, the fact that they were suffering from miscommunication was just not it for me. Honestly, the pacing and the miscommunication in the main relationship in the book is what made me detract stars from it. Other than that, it was really good. Third book that I finished in February was The Hero of Aegis. Yes, when I say I binged this, I mean that I binged this. I literally did not read a single other thing the entire 10 days that I was reading the series. Clearly, that is why I am now in a reading slump. Hero of Aegis, 5 out of 5 stars. It was so good. Here's the thing, I don't think I'll be able to coherently talk about Hero of Aegis because I might start crying. I can't deal with it. Okay, look, it's been almost a month since I read this book, and I still have not been able to fully process it. I still want to cry whenever I think about it, which is why I haven't thought about it a lot, okay? That ending kind of broke me. So I'm just gonna give you a quick overview and then we're just gonna move on from this because I might start crying again and I don't want to do that. Okay, bye. This book was really, really good. We got, again, the balance of character progression and plot progression. I got a lot of POV from Tensoon, and which is he's a Khandra, which is a magical, mythical thingamabob being in this fantasy universe. And hot damn, he's great. He's a grumpy old man and I love him so much. And he's just fantastic. I really have nothing else to say about him. He's just great. Loved him. I wish I'd gotten more Tensoon POV throughout the entire series, but I know that wouldn't have made sense within the confines of the series, so it's fine. But also, I love him. Part 3 was a little slow because there was a lot of character development going on and not a lot of plot, so that was a little slow. I got towards the end of it and I was like, can we just move on? But other than that, the pacing in this book was really good. We got, again, that balance of character development and plot development. A lot happened in this book. A lot was constantly happening in this book, even though still at the end of the book, towards the last 100 pages, we got that avalanche of shit happening at the same time, but it's fine. I really enjoyed this book. Vin and Ellen were great, and I'm gonna go before I start crying about this book again, so yeah. The 4th book that I finished in February was The 11th Metal by Brandon Sanderson. This is a Mistborn short story, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. This is a sort of Mistborn prequel about Kelsier when he unlocks his Mistborn powers and how he's getting taught to be a Mistborn. I enjoyed this for the most part because after having read the series, I could see like the little tidbits that like not everything was right, even though the characters thought that everything was okay. I could see that because I now knew what to look for, so it was really nice to read it for that. I got to see a little bit more about Kelsier's like psyche and how he was feeling after exiting from the pits of Hacind, and it was also nice to contrast how Kelsier is as a Mistborn trainer as opposed to how he was trained, because he basically does the exact opposite of his own trainer. And I really enjoyed that, of like not perpetuating toxic circles of training your Mistborn children, I guess. I really enjoyed that, but I don't have much to say about this. It was just a nice little like insight. The 5th book that I finished in February was Red, White, and Royal Blue. Yes, I did read this again in December. No, I do not care. Look, it was Valentine's Day. I had nothing to do with my day, so why not spend it with my favorite book? And like, I'm not a big romance reader, so it's this, or I don't know what the fuck else I was gonna read. And so I listened to the audiobook and it was good. It was so good. It was a 5 out of 5. Were you expecting anything else? Do I really need to talk about this book? Henry and Alex are so cute. I love them so much. The emails in this continue to be my favorite part of this book. I love this book. And I don't know how many other ways I can say that. The 6th book that I read in February was also a reread. That was Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, this was a Sanderson heavy month. I knew it was gonna be. I went into it knowing it, and I still, you know, and it was a great fun time and I loved every second of it, but I was tired by the end. I rated Warbreaker 5 out of 5 stars again. It was so good. One thing I do have to say that I noticed this time around that I didn't notice the first time was that the pacing on this is really slow. This is definitely the epitome of like people in rooms talking, because that's what the entire book was. This was people in rooms talking, and then in the last 100 to 200 pages, that's when you get all the action and everything goes to shit. Still really enjoyed this. I love the characters in this, and the character progression in this is excellent, and the character growth. I especially love seeing how Vivenna and Ciri grow so much in this book. They both start on different sides of a spectrum. One is very important, the one is quite unimportant. At the very beginning of the book, they're made to switch spots. Ciri becomes very important while Vivenna becomes very unimportant, and it is so fascinating to see how they grow into those roles, to the point that towards the end of the book, Vivenna says that Ciri will never again be happy with being unimportant, while Vivenna is very much comfortable in her role of being unimportant. So I really love this book. The character progression, the magic system in this is my favorite. Again, Brandon Sanderson truly writes magic system for nerds, which I love, because it just gets my like imagination going, and it gets like the nerdy side of me going, and I love that. One thing that I really loved, especially in this one as compared to Mistborn, is that in Mistborn you have to be born with these abilities, while in Warbreaker anyone can achieve these magical abilities if you have like the resources and the will as well. It was a fun time. I loved it again, every single second of it. I read this for our monthly live show. I will link it up here somewhere, wherever the information bubble is. That is where it'll be. After the wild month that was February, I really wasn't reading all that much. I was a little depressed, I was a little slumpy as well, and I was also dealing with moving, so my reading really went down the drain. I still managed to read 6 books in the month of March, but it was a very slow process, and I mostly audiobooked all of them. So here we go. First thing that I read in March is something that I have talked ad nauseum on this channel, but I will continue to talk about it because I love it, and that is Heartstopper. I decided to do a full reread of the 3 volumes that are currently in my possession. Volume 4 came out already, but I haven't gotten around to purchasing it yet, so I haven't read it yet. But I'm excited to do that at some point in the future. So let's just go through this. Volume 1, 5 out of 5 stars. Ratings have not changed on this. Volume 2, 5 out of 5 stars as well. Volume 3, 5 out of 5 stars as well. This continues to be my favorite volume out of all 3 of them. Because I read all 3 of them in succession, basically, yeah, I read them all on the same day. I just needed a little bit of comfort, and also because I wasn't really reading, and I wanted to read, but I didn't want to like start a full freaking book, so here we are. I'm just gonna talk about the series as a whole right now up to where I've read, because this is my channel and I make the rules. I really love this graphic novel, this series of graphic novels. It is YA, which I'm not reading as much these days, but I'm still loving it. The series specifically, just, I don't know, I love how it's written and how the characters are developed, so it's just a fun time all around, and I just really love it, and I will continue to really love it, hopefully. I'm very excited to read volume 4 when I eventually get my hands on it, and I really love the character development in this series, and it makes me happy and it gives me comfort. So next thing that I read was Once Upon a Dream by Sierra Simone. This is a collection of short stories. I rated the book as a whole 4 out of 5 stars. It has 3 short stories: American Witch, Music Box Girl, and Red and White. Out of all 3, American Witch and Music Box Girl were my favorites. Red and White uses the trope of like strangers to lovers, which isn't my favorite. I gotta say, it's like, it's fine, and the story was good, and it was poly and all that stuff, which I love, but strangers to lovers is not my thing. The story was good, but it wasn't great. Anyway, this book is 3 short stories that are very smutty, and they're like reimaginings of fairy tales, but like in the modern world. American Witch was a fun time. I think the characters are from some of Sierra Simone's other works, but it was a fun time. I got like fucking semi-public sex trope, which I didn't know I needed, but it was a fun time. And the main character has like a whole struggle with figuring out that she's a switch, which fun times all around. Music Box Girl was a wild ride of a book. There was like a big age difference. Everybody was an adult, consenting, whatnot, but it was a fun time. There was a sex club involved. And then Red and White centers around these 2 girls. They're like building a relationship, and they go away to this cabin in the woods basically, and they get snowed in, and this rando of a man just like, I don't know, like shows up there, and he's like almost frozen to death, and then they warm him up, and I will let you do what you want with that information. Like I said, the collection was really good. I really enjoyed it. Short story collections are not usually my thing, but I really enjoyed this. I don't know, Sierra Simone is my queen, and I really like the things that she writes. The next thing I read is The Library of Lost Things by Laura Taylor Namey. I read this for our live show, which was on my channel. This was my pick. I have the physical copy of the book. I just don't know where it is at the moment because not all of my books fit into my new setup. So some of them are still in boxes, and I think that was one of the ones that got cut from the shelves. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. I'd already read this. This was a reread. I still enjoyed it, but I don't know. I'm turning away from YA more and more, so meh. And also, reading slump didn't really make for me like having the best reading mindset at the time. I audiobooked it. It was good. Some of the relationships were kind of underdeveloped, especially the relationship between Darcy and her mom, which made for the final twist to not be as impactful as it could have been. Honestly, the most well-developed relationship in the entire book was between Marisol and Darcy. Like, their friendship was really well developed, and I wish some of the other relationships in the book that we're supposed to care about were as well developed as their relationship was. I really love a book about books. I've enjoyed this book before. I enjoyed it now. Gave it the same rating. We talked about it on the live show. I will link it wherever the information bubble is. Somewhere up here. Last thing I read in March was Supplicant by Sierra Simone. This was also a short story, but she published it like independent, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked this. I really liked this. I like the relationship dynamics in this, and also this made me realize that Sierra Simone caters to a very specific niche taste that I have, and that is smart smut. What I mean by that is like the books that she writes tend to be like really well researched and smart and academic, and our characters are usually academics and all very well educated, and they all just have sex with each other, and it's great. I really like this. So she caters to a very niche taste I have, and I am obsessed with it. So Sierra Simone, I love her work, so I don't know what to tell you. I mean, like, I have the whole Thorn Chapel like right here. I love it. Those were the 6 books that I read in March. I wasn't reading all that much, and I think I kind of flew through my explanations of this, but also I read them a few months ago. At this point, it's May now, so it's been a minute, and also I am feeling much better now than when I read these books, so I think my thoughts were a little less eloquent there then, and I'm a little more energetic now. I don't know. This is all chaos, but when are my videos not chaotic? I think I'm incapable of making a non-chaotic video at this point. Let's move on to April. I only read 4 books in April, and I audiobooked most of them. So here we go. First thing that I finished in April was The Martian by Andy Weir. I audiobooked this. I sort of body read it with Skylar because she was reading it for her video in which her boyfriend picked her TBR. And I was interested to read it because I have seen the movie and I really love it. So I kind of wanted to read the book. I was interested. I was intrigued. I hated this book. I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. And I question if I should have given it a 1 instead of a 2. But that's a story for another time. This is one of the few instances in which I will ever say this. The movie was better than the book. In the movie, Mark, the main character, is actually likable. He is not a child, because in the book he has the humor of a 13-year-old. And the book was very science heavy, to the point that my eyes would glaze over half the time. I honestly do not remember half of this book because it was just so science heavy that I got completely lost a lot of the time. I found Mark to be a very unlikable character. He was very unlikable. His humor was shit. And this book did not do it for me. Also, this book doesn't really have an ending. It just kind of stops. Like, there's no wrap up of the book. It just like, it just stops, which I didn't like either. The next book that I finished in April was The One by John Mars. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. I read this for our monthly live show. It was on Yesenia's channel, and the buzzword that we used to describe this book was unhinged and psychotic, and that is the best way to describe this book. So this book centers around this website that will genetically match you to your soulmate. I was intrigued going in. It follows 6 different characters who have gotten their matches and like the turmoil that it throws into their lives. The plot lines in this were fucking unhinged, my friends. Like, I have never read such a psychotic book. I get chills thinking about this book, okay? How do I describe this? Can I just read you what I wrote on my review? Because I think that sums it up better than I did. If I had to describe this novel in one word, it would be unhinged. This novel is absolutely psychotic from beginning to end. The novel follows 6 different characters under the premise of a world in which people can be DNA matched with their soulmates. Throughout the novel, you follow 6 people, all with different backgrounds, views on soulmates, and degrees of sanity. The storylines on this book range from the believable to the absolutely psychotic. From a woman who marries someone who she knows isn't her soulmate because he's terminally ill, that's the more believable one, to a woman who has the baby of her soulmate who is in a vegetative state, who, by the way, she has never met. Oh, and I can't skip over the little psychopathic serial killer that is one of the characters that we follow. Truly, this book is absolutely unhinged. There is really no other way that I can describe it. The writing was fine, nothing out of this world, and there are some interesting twists and turns, but I have to say that this novel really asks too much of my suspension of disbelief at times. While I usually don't have a lot of trouble suspending my disbelief, and I am willing to accept some pretty out there things, something about this novel really pushed me to the brink. All in all, it was an enjoyable enough read, but this novel pushed me in ways that I could not get it with. The plot was all over the place, and it really irked me that these stories really did not intersect in any way, shape, or form. Those were my thoughts on the book. It is unhinged, it is wild. I really wanted the stories to intersect somehow, but they don't, and just almost every single plot line in this book is absolutely fucking unhinged. It was a time. It was a time. Anyway, as usual, I will link the live show up in here somewhere, and you can go just see us lose our minds for 45 minutes. The next book that I finished in April was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. I really loved this book. It is a dual timeline between 1791 and the present time, and it follows basically these 3 women, 2 in 1791 and 1 in the current timeline. It centers around this apothecary who provides poisons for women who need to get rid of the shitty men in their lives. Yeah. And the present timeline is this woman who has just found out that her husband is cheating on her, and she is sort of like thrown into this mystery of the lost apothecary from 1791. This book is ridiculously good. I actually started reading this out myself, and I ended up finishing it with the audiobook because I needed hands-free because I really wanted to embroider, but I wanted to listen to a book. So this is really good. I really enjoyed the dual timeline. I enjoyed the female like empowerment of this book, and I really loved all the characters in this book. And I hope that Caroline in the present timeline figures out that the cute librarian is the way to go once she finally divorces her husband, because that cute librarian, she was cute, and like Caroline throws out some serious queer vibes. So there you go. That is not to say that this is in any way explicitly queer, but she makes a point of like really noticing that the women she's meeting are very beautiful, and I was just like, yeah girl, go with the sexy librarian. Yeah. So that's that. The last book that I read in April was If We Were Villains by ML Rio. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. Fucking cried at the end of this book. I'm still a little hurt by this book. This centers around a group of friends in like 1997, and they're going to this university and they're all studying to be actors, and some shit goes down. And so we also get like a dual timeline in this, which I really appreciated. Clearly, I love a dual timeline. So we get the narrative past of 1997 and we get the narrative present of 2007. And I loved this book. It was chock full of Shakespeare references, which I love because I am such a nerd for Shakespeare. And the main character was an oblivious fuck, and I love him, but he was oblivious as hell. That ending killed me. It was a whole, like, it was kind of an open ending. Like in the last like 3 lines, it leaves it open for like a happy resolution, but I didn't get that on the page, and so I'm sad. I cried during this book, and like I don't cry during a lot of books and a lot of things, so getting me to cry alone would have been given this a 5-star, but honestly this was really good. This is definitely like going into my all-time faves shelf, because I really loved it, and I was still kind of slumpy at the point, and it got me through. and I read it super quickly. So I really love this. No, I don't have much to say about this. It was really fucking good. I like saw the twist that would set everything off coming, but I didn't know who was gonna be the victim and who was gonna be the perpetrator. That was good. It gave me a mystery to look forward to, and I don't know, I really liked it. It was really good. That's been everything I've read in the last 3 months. I'm hoping to get back to doing these monthly because I don't like lumping them all in together, especially because I don't remember half my points about these books a few months later. It's a good thing that I keep a reading journal because otherwise I would be lost in space. But anyway, thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to support your local indie bookstore. I have been Dadi, and I will see you on the next one. Okay, bye.